Princess,' he said, 'cheer up. Nothing is ever so bad as it seems.' 'Oh, baker's boy,' said she, for she knew him too, 'how can I cheer up? I am turned out of my kingdom, I haven't got my father's address, and I have to face my enemies without a single human being to stand by me.' 'That's not true, at any rate,' said the baker's boy, whose name was Erinaceus. 'You've got me. If you'll let me be your squire, I'll follow you round the world and help you to fight your enemies.' 'You won't be let,' said the Princess sadly, 'but I thank you very much all the same.' She dried her eyes and stood up. 'I must go,' she said, 'and I've nowhere to go to.' Now, as soon as the Princess had been turned out of the palace, the Queen said, 'You'd much better have beheaded her for treason.' And the King said, 'I'll tell the archers to pick her off as she leaves the grounds.' So when she stood up out there among the oleanders, some one on the terrace cried, 'There she is!' and instantly a flight of winged arrows crossed the garden. At the cry Erinaceus flung himself in front of her, clasping her in his arms and turning his back to the arrows. The royal archers were 1,000 strong and all excellent shots. Erinaceus felt 1,000 arrows sticking into his back. 'And now my last friend is dead,' cried the Princess. But being a very strong Princess, she dragged him into the shrubbery out of sight of the palace, and then dragged him into the wood and called aloud on Benevola, Queen of the Fairies. And Benevola came. 'They've killed my only friend,' said the Princess. 'At least, shall I pull out the arrows?' 'If you do,' said the Fairy, 'he'll certainly bleed to death.' 'And he'll die if they stay in,' said the Princess. 'Not necessarily,' said the Fairy. 'Let me cut them a little shorter.' She did, with her fairy pocket knife. 'Now,' she said, 'I'll do what I can, but I'm afraid it'll be a disappointment to you both. Erinaceus,' she went on, addressing the unconscious baker's boy, with the stumps of the arrows still sticking in him, 'I command you, as soon as I have vanished, to assume the form of a hedge-pig.' 'The hedge-pig,' she exclaimed to the Princess, 'is the only nice person who can live comfortably with 1,000 spikes sticking out of him. Yes, I know there are porcupines, but porcupines are vicious and ill-mannered. Good-bye.' And with that she vanished. So did Erinaceus, and the Princess found herself alone among the oleanders, and on the green turf was a small and very prickly brown hedge-pig. 'Oh dear,' she said, 'now I'm all alone again, and the baker's boy has given his life for mine, and mine isn't worth having.' 'It's worth more than all the world,' said a sharp little voice at her feet. 'Oh, can you talk?' she said, quite cheered. 'Why not?' said the hedge-pig sturdily. 'It's only the form of the hedge-pig I've assumed. I'm Erinaceus inside, all right enough. Pick me up in a corner of your mantle so as not to prick your darling hands.' 'You mustn't call names, you know,' said the Princess. 'Even your hedge-pigginess can't excuse such liberties.' 'I'm sorry, Princess,' said the hedge-pig, 'but I can't help it. Only human beings speak lies. All other creatures tell the truth. Now I've got a hedge-pig's tongue it won't speak anything but the truth. And the truth is that I love you more than all the world.' 'Well,' said the Princess thoughtfully, 'since you're a hedge-pig, I suppose you may love me, and I may love you, like pet dogs or goldfish. Dear little hedge-pig, then.' 'Don't,' said the hedge-pig. 'Remember, I'm the baker's boy in my mind and soul. My hedge-pigginess is only skin deep. Pick me up, dearest of princesses, and let us go to seek our fortunes.' 'I think it's my parents I ought to seek,' said the Princess. 'However—' She picked up the hedge-pig in the corner of her mantle, and they went away through the wood. They slept that night at a woodcutter's cottage. The woodcutter was very kind, and made a nice little box of beechwood for the hedge-pig to be carried in, and he told the Princess that most of her father's subjects were still loyal, but that no one could fight for him, because they would be fighting for the Princess too, and however much they might wish to do this, Malevola's curse assured them that it was impossible. So the Princess put her hedge-pig in its little box, and went on, looking everywhere for her father and mother, and, after more adventures than I have time to tell you, she found them at last, living in quite a poor way in a semi-detached villa at Tooting. They were very glad to see her, but when they heard that she meant to try to get back the kingdom, the King said, "I shouldn't bother, my child. I really shouldn't. We're quite happy here. I have the pension always given to deposed monarchs, and your mother is becoming a really economical manager." The Queen blushed with pleasure, and said, "Thank you, dear. But if you should succeed in turning that wicked usurper out, Ozyliza, I hope I shall be a better queen than I used to be. I'm learning housekeeping at an evening class at the Crownmakers' Institute." The Princess kissed her parents and went out into the garden to think it over. But the garden was small and quite full of wet washing hung on lines. So she went into the road, but that was full of dust and perambulators. Even the wet washing was better than that, so she went back and sat down on the grass in a white alley of tablecloths and sheets, all marked with a crown in indelible ink. And she took the hedge-pig out of the box. It was rolled up in a ball, but she stroked the little bit of soft forehead that you can always find if you look carefully at a rolled-up hedge-pig, and the hedge-pig uncurled and said, "I'm afraid I was asleep, Princess dear. Did you want me?" "You're the only person who knows all about everything," said she. "I haven't told father and mother about the arrows. Now, what do you advise?" Erinaceus was flattered at having his advice asked, but unfortunately he hadn't any to give. "It's your work, Princess," he said. "I can only promise to do anything a hedge-pig can do. It's not much. Of course I could die for you, but that's so useless." "Quite," said she. "I wish I were invisible," he said dreamily. "Oh, where are you?" cried Ozyliza, for the hedge-pig had vanished. "Here," said a sharp little voice. "You can't see me, but I can see everything I want to see. And I can see what to do. I'll crawl into my box, and you must disguise yourself as an old French governess with the best references, and answer the advertisement that the wicked king put yesterday in the Usurper's Journal." The Queen helped the Princess to disguise herself, which of course the Queen would never have done if she had known about the arrows, and the King gave her some of his pension to buy a ticket with, so she went back quite quickly by train to her own kingdom. The usurping king at once engaged the French governess to teach his cook to read French cookery books, because the best recipes are in French. Of course he had no idea that there was a princess, the princess, beneath the governessial disguise. The French lessons were from 6 to 8 in the morning, and from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, and all the rest of the time the governess could spend as she liked. She spent it walking about the palace gardens and talking to her invisible hedge-pig. They talked about everything under the sun, and the hedge-pig was the best of company. 'How did you become invisible?' she